What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the machine shop. It's after work on a Monday, of course. I didn't get much done this weekend. I just hung out with the kids. But I wanted to make a quick video tonight because I got to get trucking on some of this stuff before I send my block and crank off to the machine shop to get hot tanked and cleaned. I want to make a quick video tonight about sort of the backyard redneck polishing techniques that I use for crankshafts, and then map out my my crankshaft main journals and see if they're out of round or whether they're in spec, out of spec, if we're gonna do good or if we're gonna have to get this thing cut. So just gonna be a quick one today, but it's gonna be pretty interesting. I'm gonna try and show how to use some of the tools, but you know, I'm not a pro. I just do what I can do and have fun with it. So that said, let's get after it. Now, it's important to understand that when you're doing a sort of backyard rebuild like this, you can go a couple of different ways. You can slap it together with fresh bearings and send it, but you're taking a huge risk because if something is out of round, Plastigauge will not tell you about it. I laid out just a few tools here that are pretty much vital to this whole process if you want to kind of do it right. And disclaimer, I'm not a machinist. These are just tools that are fun to play with, and when you use them right, they are going to help you out tremendously in your low buck or junkyard builds. The first thing we got here is a set of machinist micrometers, outside micrometers. We've got our dial bore gauge here. I did lay out a packet of Plastigauge because this actually does have a place once you get everything done, all your measurements. We're going to Plastigauge afterwards as well. And then we have some cork here, which we're going to use for polishing. We've got some shoelaces even to assist us in the polishing. And then of course we've got a digital caliper. All those things are going to help us to get this right. Now the crankshaft, I did polish 3 of the main journals. And I polished 3 of the rod journals as well. I left the last 2 so I can show you guys how I do that. When we're done with that, we're going to get our micrometers out and we're going to see if these journals spec out correctly. I've already taken the liberty of writing my standards up on the whiteboard here. So up at the top right there, we have all our standards. Our bore for our cylinders is going to be 3.780. Our crank main journals are going to be 2.559 or 2 and 559 thousandths. Our crank rod journals are going to be 2.100 or 2 and 100 thousandths. And our main housing bore diameter is going to be 2.751 or 2 and 751 thousandths. We'll go through them one by one, see how close we are, and see if we can build this engine the way we want to. Because the reality is if something is out of spec or out of round and cannot be corrected, a crank has to be cut, a line hone has to be done, things of that nature. And you just can't get around that. Like I said, that's what happens if you throw an engine together without measuring stuff. It kind of sucks. You can have a bad time and have it blow up in an hour, or you know, one fun ride down the road. We don't want that. This is going to be super low buck because I didn't like the way that this engine looked. I didn't like anything about it, but we are going to do the backyard rebuild the right way and make sure everything's within spec so that we can have some fun with it before we toast it. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, so the very first thing that we have to deal with here is this raised up area. This is a sort of carbon oil deposit, whatever you want to call it. It's just probably close to a thou. And it's just kind of stuck on there, really. And there's a couple ways you can get rid of this. You can use a plastic card or another soft plastic. Anything soft that won't gouge the crankshaft can take this off. I would prefer to, go in an up and down motion rather than side to side coming across these journals. I'd rather follow this up. What I've actually found is easiest for me is to go ahead and give her a shot of WD. Kind of get that in there. And we can actually just get our fingernail in there. And you can see that starts to break up almost immediately. We'll get up a little bit closer there, give you guys a good shot of it. So I'll just use my fingernail there. We'll come back and we've got ourselves a little shop t-shirt here. It's 100% cotton, and now we can see the difference there, the area I just scraped off. And we just kind of continue to do that all the way around here. And when it kind of gets tough, you just give her a little shot there. Scrape this off. Get the majority of it off. Don't worry about the shadow, the shadow of it. We're actually going to polish off. You can see there, she's coming right off. And again, you could use a plastic card for this. I've done it before, but depending on the thickness of the plastic, especially in the cold like it is right now, it's probably 5-6 degrees in the machine shed here. I don't have heat in here, and I really just don't want to gouge anything and have to deal with it later. So we just take our time and work that off with the old fingernail. Use them if you got them. I don't have much of a fingernail, but it doesn't take much. You just scrape these off. You can wipe your fingers off too with your t-shirt that you got here. Let's wipe that journal off a little bit. And I'm just kind of working my way around here. This area is a little bit dry. Okay, so we've got, looks like we missed a tiny little spot right there. Get out of there. There we go, got her. Okay, so that's what it looks like now. We've got that off. And you can see now we just have kind of a shadow there, a remnant of what was there, and that's sort of just staining. To hit this journal here again a little bit. These all have I've just barely polished them. And one thing I forgot to set out on the table is this. So this is just literally the band of an old pair of underwear. And yes, they were American flag underwear, right? Because this is America and we're working on a small block Chevy. But what I found is that this works really good for just removing staining. You're not gonna take any metal off with this. It's very elastic, and you can slide this over the end of the crankshaft, just like so. I'm actually gonna grab something to hold the crank in place here. Just backing. All right, we grabbed an old torque converter there. through behind the crankshaft. This will just help keep it in place so it don't roll back. And then we're just gonna get a whole bunch of WD on there. There we go. And we're just gonna work it back and forth. You can even stand up and work it up and down. Come around this way. Try and hit it from every angle. And again, we're not taking any metal off here. We just want to get that staining off. And we're going to come back with some polish and hit it with some cork. Now you can see this areas that we hit. You can see a pretty significant difference, but we still have some staining there. So now we're going to get our cork. And this is just cork that you would use to make a gasket. You can buy a roll of this at just about any parts store. It's really cheap. We're going to soak it in WD to make it more pliable, because it is been sitting out here in the shop. Everything's cold, everything's sticky. Get her nice and wet. Kind of work that WD in there. Now, I'm just going to take some polish here, and this is Mother's mag and aluminum wheel polish. But you can use this on any metal, and the reason that I like it is because it is significantly less abrasive than, say, you know, like a brass polisher or even a steel polish. This stuff is very, very friendly, and that's what I want. We don't want to take off too much accidentally, and so this stuff really does the trick. And it's going to be the same concept as using that elastic band. We're going to just get this stuff all over it. The difference is we're going to wrap the cork with shoelaces, and that'll allow us to polish the whole journal evenly. We're going to have to lose the gloves here too. This is going to take all the digits. Now, you can use one shoelace. I brought two. I lost my other polishing shoelaces, so this is a brand new set, fresh out of an old pair of shoes. Hopefully I didn't cut my cork too wide. You like to get a nice coverage all the way around, if a guy can. We'll just wrap our shoelace around. Now, if you've been in it building engines for any amount of time, this is probably relatively benign to you, and you've seen this done a million times. But you know, it does work, and you can use 1,000 grit. You could start off with even a 400 or 600 grit and go to 1,000 grit sandpaper. But I'd rather polish and take my time, because I don't want to have to cut this crank. I want to be able to put standard bearings back in it, and that is going to involve essentially taking off as little metal as possible. So once we get this going here, let me see if I can get a better shot for you guys. There we are. We've got our cork just going back and forth, and you see those shoelaces kind of articulating up and down on the journal as well. And you can really feel this smooth out, and I'm already feeling it smooth out. The first couple of strokes can be kind of difficult, but after a couple of seconds here, she just smooths right out. So now, all right, Okay, so now we did it, a good little while there. And let's see exactly what we got. Take our cork off, and you can kind of visually see what happened there. So, very small amount of metal removal here. And let's take a look at our journal after our first round with our polish and our cork. Now, and I mean, a guy could call that good right there. There's still a stain. We have a stain here, but the journal itself is just, I mean, there's no gouging, there's no nothing. And again, the less work that you do here, the better it is in the long run, 9 times out of 10. Because even sitting working and excuse me, even sitting and working this mag and aluminum polish, you can go too far. And so it's always better to, I always think about it this way. You want to keep as much metal in the motor as possible because it leaves you the most room for error. So if something does happen, you could come back and cut this down. The condition that it's in now, if you ended up cutting this down, I'd feel like you're wasting your time. So, and now we're going to actually hit our mains. We're going to hit all of our mains with our cork because when I did these before, I just did them with the elastic band. I did not cork them with our aluminum polish. So let's go ahead and let's time lapse the rest of these, and we'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. So I want you to take a close look at this journal here. You can see we don't have hardly any scratching whatsoever. It's really just, we're good to go there. And now if we take a peek down at this journal here, we can see some very, very faint vertical lines. And the same goes for this main here and here as well. Just very faint. We're talking, I mean, maybe a single 10,000th. It's so small and minimal, and that's what's cool about using your polish with your cork, is that we're going to take off the minimal amount. We're going to get these shined up. And when it comes time for bearing clearances, this is going to help us as well, because if everything specs out correctly, we want to use a heavier oil in this motor because we're going to be putting a turbocharger on it. We're going to have significantly more heat. And, the thicker oil that we run, the less, breakdown the oil is going to suffer from, and the more longevity we're going to get out of our bearing surfaces and things like that. So, all right, let's time lapse the rest of these, and then we'll hop on to the next thing. right, guys, so here's the results. We've got this crank polished, and you can see that there's still, there's still a little bit of staining here on the crank, but that's completely okay. These journals are all nice and smooth. You can even see some slight etching in some places, but there's no hard edges whatsoever. And I'm 99% confident that this will be just fine to run just like this. But also keep in mind that my crank and my block still have yet to go to the machine shop, and they are going to be hot tanked, and they're going to get the approval of my machinist before they go back in. But the next thing that we have to work on here is measuring these journals. Now, like I said before, I've got all of my standards written down on the whiteboard. My crank main journals, 2.559. And here we have our machinist micrometers. Now, if you've never used these before, it can be a bit daunting at first, but just know that it's actually super simple how it works. There's 3 main scales on an outside micrometer. So you've got, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on my phone here. Hold on. There we go. Let me zoom in. You've got your main scale, which is this scale right here. Now you see where it says 0, 1, 2. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The main scale is reading in hundreds of thousands. Of course, below 100 thousandths, it would be 0 to 99. Then it goes 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. Now on our thimble scale, this is reading like the number 15 here. This is going to be 15 thousandths. Okay, so it'd be 0.015. And then up on the top, this is, let me see if this is picking this up. This is the vernier scale, okay? And that's going to be your fourth number that's going to read tens of thousands, okay? So when you use one of these, basically you take your hundreds of thousands, then you add your tens of thousands, or I'm sorry, you take your hundreds of thousands, then you add your thousands, and then you add your tens of thousands. So it's basically 3 numbers that you're going to add. So let's add up what I got on here right at this very moment. Okay. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to put this in between 15 and 16. We've got 500 thou on our main scale. Now it's in between 15 and 16, and we always round down. So we've got 500, 15 thousandths. We come up to our vernier scale, and we see which line lines up perfectly. And I don't know if you can pick it up there, but 6, it's a little bit above 6, but it's a little bit below 8, so it's going to be 7. So our total reading would be 515 thousandths plus 7 ten thousandths. So you add them all together. So let me go add these all together. Oops, wait, what was that? Yeah, 515 thousandths plus, actually I'll start it over. It's gonna be 500 thousandths on our main scale plus 15 thousandths plus 0, 0, 0, 7. So you just add 515 thousandths equals 0.515 5, 7. There you go. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, the first thing we want to do is calibrate our micrometer. And the way that we're going to do that is by using standards. This is a 2-inch standard, and we got a 1-inch standard here. Okay. Okay, so we've got our standard here. We're going to run with a 2-inch and just see how close we are. Now our crank main journal standard is 2 inches 559. So if I can dial this thing right in on 2 here. All right, so we've got our 2-inch standard in the micrometer here. And you can see here, this is a 2 to 3 inch. And then we've got our measurement, our level of accuracy here is 0.0001, which is essentially 1/10,000th. So, and we look at our main scale here, and it is actually about, I mean, it's under 1/10,000th, but it's just over. So we're going to call that good. Within a 10,000th is fine with me. And we will get on with this. Bring our crank over. Now what I'm going to want to do, what you're going to want to do is cross-section these. Okay, and you're going to want to look for out around. That's the whole point of this, is to make sure that the journal is the same on both sides. So we'll open this up, try and find a nice area where it slides over. We're going to use our top clicker. Okay, we'll loosen a little bit. Kind of find a nice little place for it there. You want to get it centered and still be able to pull it off. Now, if you can't pull it off, that means that you're not at the high spot. Should be able to go off either way. Okay. So we've got 2 inches. .550. We've got 2 inches 550 on the main scale. We're just under 9 there. So it's going to be 558. And then let's look at what lines up here. And we've got almost lines up on 8 there. It's right on 0. So our front crank main journal comes out to 2,558 exactly. And that's actually 1,000th under spec. So we'll go ahead and write that down. $2.558. Now we're going to cross section it the other way. Let's lock that. Okay, there we go. So there we've got 2,558. Yeah, 0. We've actually got identical number. So you want to be careful when you're taking your measurements that each cross section that you're taking is exactly the same there. On that second one, I didn't quite go as tight. I was a little bit loose on my tool. So we've got 80 as well there. So we've got exactly 1 thou difference on our first journal here from the factory spec. Now I'm going to run through, we'll time lapse the rest of these journals and we'll see what we come up with. All right, guys, so kind of just that quick, we measured up all of the mains on the crank, and of course there's possibly user error in there, but everything came out good. We've got on number 1, we've got 5580 with 5580 on the cross section. Number 2, 5590 with 5590 cross section. Number 3, 5590 with a 5589 cross section. Number 4, 5590. Number 4 cross section 5590. Number 5, 5591 with a 5591 cross section. Now, some of that can be user error, but you know, again, this is all really good news. Nothing way out of spec. Everything seems good to go. And you know, be careful when you're getting your micrometers in here too. I had to remeasure a couple of times because you get into these oil galleys and stuff like that when you're trying to cross section them. But you know, it is freezing out here and it's getting late, so I'm gonna actually pick this up probably tomorrow night. But yeah, until next time, thanks for watching. I appreciate it if you are watching. And hopefully you'll like my backyard crank polish. And we're gonna keep blueprinting this, and you know, it gives a guy security. You don't have to be a machinist to use all these tools. You don't have to be perfect with them either. But you know, even having this kind of stuff to double check your machinist's work, because everyone's human and everyone makes a mistake. That's why I have this stuff. I do have a machinist that that takes care of stuff that I need done. But even when I get stuff back from him, you know, I measure it all up myself and make sure that everything's correct. And it's just an added level of security. So, and then when you want to do a junkyard build like this, you can throw it together yourself and have some confidence, you know, rather than just, you know, throwing some bearings at the thing and sending it. So, yeah, if you're watching, thanks for watching. If you like it, you know, give me a like. We're going to keep going on this. My next video will be doing the rod journals. We're going to map those out. Then we're going to map out all of our cylinder bores. We're going to map out our housing bore diameters. And hopefully we'll be able to get all that stuff done before she goes to get hot tanked at the machine shop and new cam bearings installed. Then we can order our bearings and stuff that we need to put her back together while she's at the machine shop getting hot tanked. So until next time, thanks again. Have a wonderful night. I'll see you soon.